and good evening, everybody. It is a real honor to be requested to introduce our Gold Medal awardees for 2021. Let me just say a little about the award. The ASSAf Science-for-Society Gold Medal Award is an annual award. It was established by the Academy in 2002 with the purpose of recognizing outstanding members of the Academy who have applied scientific thinking for the benefit of society. All areas of science and scholarly work are considered, and every year we can award up to 2 medals. We consider scientific and scholarly achievements in a number of areas aligned with the objectives of ASSAf, such as inspiring and promoting excellence in scientific and technical practice and presenting relevant role models in society, or using the common ground of scientific knowledge and activity to remove barriers between people and to enable people to fully develop their intellectual capacity. We also recognize achievements in the investigation and public reporting of matters in order to promote scientific thinking in the service of society. And we've heard this evening, never has that been a more important achievement. And in fact, our awardees this evening speak to that achievement as well. We also recognize promoting science education and a culture of science in our communities, again, critical at this time. And we recognize the establishing and developing of close relations with other scientific organizations in South Africa and other countries. The first gold medals were awarded in 2003 to Professors Malagaburo Makgoba and Trevor Jenkins. Since 2003, over 30 of our most eminent scientists have received the ASSAf Gold Medals. You will find their names on our website, and if you were watching a little earlier, we had a wonderful display of those big players in our academy. Tonight, we are awarding the gold medal to 2 more outstanding members of the Academy. The 2021 gold medals are awarded to Professor Shabir Mahdi and Professor Barry Schoub. I am going to now call on 2 of our members of the Academy to read citations, after which the medal winners will be invited to say a few words. So let me now call on Professor Lynn Morris to read the citation for Professor Shabir Mahdi, and after that, Professor Mahdi will be invited to speak. Professor Morris, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. This really gives me great pleasure to read the citation for Professor Shabir Mahdi and to congratulate him. Just to say that this nomination was made also on behalf with Zeblon Vilakazi and Wolfgang Preiser, who I think is also on the call. And let me also take this opportunity to congratulate Barry Schoub on this joint award. This certainly feels like an NICD reunion. And I think it really, I just want to use this opportunity to say that we recognize the critical role of science-led public health institutions. And I think that's been particularly, evident as well during COVID. But on to Shabir. So Professor Shabir Mahdi is an NRF A-rated South African researcher of global standing. He has been conducting clinical and epidemiology research for 25 years, with a specific focus on the clinical and molecular epidemiology and prevention of pneumonia, meningitis, neonatal sepsis, and diarrheal disease. He is an outstanding example of the application of scientific thinking in the service of society. Shabir is Professor of Vaccinology and Director of the South African Medical Research Council Vaccines and Infectious Diseases Analytics Research Unit. Short name of that is Wits-Vida, because it's based at University of the Witwatersrand. And in January 2021, Shabir was appointed the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of the Witwatersrand, where he and I are colleagues. And here's a bit of an interesting fact about Shabir. So born in 1966, Shabir initially aspired to become an engineer, but his bursary conditions only allowed him to study medicine, and thank goodness for that. In 1990, he completed his undergraduate training at Wits, and 6 years later, he became a fellow of the College of Pediatrics. During this time, he applied for a post under Professor Keith Klugman to work on vaccines for pneumonia. And in 1998, he received a master's degree in medicine in pediatrics and a PhD in 2003. So Shabir was the executive director of South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases, or the NICD, from 2011 to 2017, where he was my boss, and has served on several World Health Organization committees in roles related to vaccines and pneumonia. In 2018, he co-founded the African Leadership in Vaccinology Expertise, or it's called ALIVE. So in the past, he's led studies on pneumococcal conjugate vaccines and rotavirus vaccines in Africa, which informed WHO recommendations on the use of these vaccines in low and middle income countries. And more recently, he's led studies on clinical development of influenza, Group B streptococcus, and respiratory syncytial virus vaccines for pregnant women, aimed at protection of mother-infant dyad. And I think many of you will know that work that was published in NEJM. And of course, most recently, he led the first 2 COVID-19 vaccine studies of the AstraZeneca and the Novavax vaccines. And these were the first 2 studies undertaken in Africa. And then, of course, he's been involved in multiple epidemiological studies on COVID-19 in South Africa. And amazingly, he's co-authored more than 500 scientific manuscripts since 1997, mainly on vaccine preventable diseases. So sometimes I think there must be 2 Shabirs, because it's kind of hard to imagine that one person can do all of this. It's really quite an exceptional effort and amount of work. But I'm very pleased now to invite Shabir, the real Shabir, to give us a short acceptance speech. Thanks, Shabir.
Thank you, Prof. Morris, and good evening, colleagues, fellow ASSAf members. Good evening, Prof. Burton, Prof. Sudhal, and Prof. Morris. Thank you for those kind words. And there really is only one Shabir. It's a real pleasure, firstly, it's an honor for me, firstly, to be part of ASSAf, and a further honor to be able to join the likes of the many other worthy recipients of this award in the past, as well as together with Prof. Shubh today. So as Prof. Morris has mentioned, it is difficult to conceptualize one person doing so much work, but the reality is not about a single person. Certainly the success of my own research unit wouldn't be possible without the tremendous team that I've been able to put together over the past 26 years. And this award is really a recognition of a team effort rather than an individual effort. I've been fortunate that in the past 26 years, we've been able to engage in a huge amount of capacity development, leading to the establishment of a research unit that is really internationally recognized for its work, most recently in the field of COVID-19, but I think the legacy of the unit and its contribution that it has made to the health, and particularly to the health of children on the African continent, actually is in relation to the many other vaccines that we very much were at the forefront in its clinical development, as well as characterizing the epidemiology of those diseases. And those include vaccines against pneumonia-diarrheal disease. At the time when we embarked on this research, there was almost no research in that field on the African continent. And it is because of the work that we did in South Africa at what was previously the Respiratory and Meningeal Pathogen Research Unit, and more recently renamed VIDA, that we were able to undertake studies which allowed WHO to make recommendations for the use and implementation of those life-saving vaccines on the continent. And like I mentioned, that certainly wouldn't have been an individual effort, but rather testimony to the tremendous team that have been able to come together and continue to do amazing work. Finally, I think it's also important to recognize that almost all of the work that we do simply wouldn't be possible. It simply wouldn't be possible without the spirit of Ubuntu, which the community of Soweto demonstrates. Their willingness to participate in the clinical research, their willingness to assist us, the willingness to actually allow us to engage in the community is really what helps us to be able to make a difference to people in South Africa, to the children in South Africa, as well as on the African continent. So with those few words, once again, thanks for the honor of being bestowed this award, and good evening.
Thank you very much, Professor Morris, and Professor Mahdi. Hearty congratulations. I'd now like to call on Professor Salim Abdul Karim to read the citation for Professor Barry Shubh's award, and then after that we will hear from Professor Shubh. So Salim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Burton. It's indeed a great honor and a privilege for me to be with you here this evening to congratulate both Professors Schoub and Mahdi, both of whom I've known for many, many years. I think as I reflect on all of their accomplishments, it's indeed particularly poignant that ASSAf has chosen to recognize and acknowledge the contributions of two individuals who have led, in the case of Professor Schoub, even created our country's national public health institution to respond to epidemics. So let me read the citation for Professor Schoub. Professor Barry Schoub is an internationally renowned virologist who has had a truly impressive impact on viral diseases and vaccination, not only in South Africa, but also in Africa and indeed globally. He obtained his undergraduate medical degree at Wits University in 1967, and in 1977, he received the US Public Health Service International Postdoc Fellowship and was subsequently the first recipient of the James Gear International Postdoc Fellowship. In 1978, he was appointed as the first professor and head of the Department of Virology at Wits University at the tender age of 33. He was the director of the National Institute of Virology, and subsequently in 2002, he created the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, serving as its founding executive director until 2011. He is widely recognized as a world leader in virology. His exceptional track record of high-impact publications on viral vaccines have made critically important scientific contributions to the development of novel poliovirus vaccines and rotavirus vaccines. He also played a key role in the local manufacture of poliovirus vaccines in South Africa. He served as the initial chair of the Polio Expert Committee and led the scientific board of the Poliomyelitis Research Foundation, which built the depth of expertise we have in South Africa in the field of virology. He also spearheaded the establishment of the South African Field and Epidemiology Laboratory Training Program, which prepares field epidemiologists to, amongst others, investigate outbreaks. Professor Schoub has served as a member of several local and international bodies, including as an advisor to the World Health Organization programs on polio, measles, respiratory syncytial virus, and influenza. He was also a member of the WHO's Advisory Committee on Poliomyelitis Eradication and on the interim board of the International Society of Influenza and Respiratory Viruses. He created and served as the founding chair of the National Advisory Group on Immunization of South Africa. That's the organization that defines our vaccination policy. And he is currently the chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19 vaccines that's guiding South Africa's vaccination program. He is undoubtedly a world-class scientist who has consistently used his energy, talents, and scientific prowess to combat diseases, build capacity, and promote health in South Africa, and more broadly, especially in relation to pandemic preparedness. South Africa, and indeed Africa, is so fortunate to have a virologist of Professor Schoub's caliber, a humble and truly outstanding servant of science. As we heard so eloquently from my good friend and colleague Ismail Seragelden, academies have a critical role to play in making science available for evidence-based policy. In this regard, Professor Schoub is a shining example of science for society that we should all strive to follow. It is my honor to congratulate Professor Schoub as an exceptional and deserving candidate of the ASSAf Science-for-Society Gold Medal Award. Congratulations.
Over to you, Professor Schoub.
Good evening, Professor Jansen, Professor Burton, Professor Shubir. Good evening to colleagues. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great pleasure, privilege as a member of the Academy and really to express my appreciation, my gratitude to the Academy for bestowing on me its Apex Award, the Science-for-Society Gold Medal. It really is an incredible honor, and of course I am deeply, deeply grateful. Let me also extend my congratulations to my co-awardee, Professor Mahdi, my successor, in fact, as the director of the NICD. Secondly, it is with immense gratitude that I'd like to acknowledge Professor Salim Abdul Karim, who nominated me for the award, and I cannot but say a few personal words about Professor Abdul Karim, and I hope you'll forgive me for doing so. I have been especially privileged to have worked with Professor Abdul Karim as a fellow colleague and also as a close and dear friend for over a quarter of a century. It has indeed been a very special privilege working alongside him on a number of initiatives and programs which we worked on together, on which he mentioned in the citation, and also serving together with him on the bodies of several organizations. Professor Abdul Karim occupies the very pinnacle of scientific achievement in South Africa. He is the giant of biomedical sciences in this country, and it is indeed a great honor that he's read my citation for me. He has made some of the most significant and valuable biomedical advances in scientific research internationally, but also with far-reaching benefits to public health in South Africa. But over and above this, he has taken our science to an even higher level. He has imbued into our science something of tremendous value, an ethic and a morality. And it's really this aspect of science in particular which I'd like now to focus on, as I believe that this is the focus of the Gold Medal Awards, the Science for Society. May I start by raising a fundamental question which has been asked of scientists before and which is now so pertinent today in the COVID-19 era. And that is there a role for morality in science? In posing this question, I would ask us to step back and reflect on whether our science is, in fact, consumating its responsibilities to society. Are we adequately imbuing our science with meaning and value? Why I'm reflecting and pondering on these questions is because it is specifically in the biomedical sciences where the trust of society is so intrinsically crucial, and where, despite the excellence of our science, we may be failing somewhat. 21st century technology has created extremely powerful and pervasive weapons of communication in the forms of social media. Sean Otto has so powerfully articulated the dangers and the risks of social media in his book, The War on Science. The 21st century has certainly spawned a very significant, a very vocal, and often a very hostile lobby of opponents to science. Nowhere has this phenomena been more challenging than what has mushroomed in the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not too surprising given that COVID has been, in our lifetime, the biggest disruptor of our lives. The infusion of politics and financial interests into the realm of science is by no means new, but it has, I feel now, reached unprecedented levels during COVID. But is it only Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram which have fueled anti-vaccination, anti-masking, chloroquine, and ivermectin? Or maybe is there something else? We do need to critically examine why have such large tracts of society lost their trust in science. Is our focus on productivity perhaps attenuating our responsibilities and our obligations to society? What has also come to the fore in the COVID pandemic is the tragedy of global inequity, driven by financial and political agendas, with perhaps the starkest example being the global vaccine inequities and vaccine hoarding by high-income countries. As the WHO Secretary General, Dr. Tedros, alarmingly warned us earlier this year that we could be facing a catastrophic moral failure. Is it an unrealistic dream that for the future mechanisms could be instituted to have vaccines not treated as commercial commodities in the global marketplace? Or is this just a dream? How could science and scientists play a role in the quagmire of political, financial, and social interests? I would like to suggest that whatever science we are doing, it needs to be predicated with a simple one-word question: why? Whatever scientific endeavor it is, it needs to be supplemented and enriched with a values quality, a quality of its meaningfulness to the society we serve. We can lift science to be a virtuous as well as a utilitarian pursuit. Finally, I'd again like to salute and congratulate our Academy for creating its Apex Award, its gold medal, to serve as recognition for the achievements of science for the benefit of society. I am deeply grateful for having honored me with this very, very prestigious award.